I believe I'm here. You go. I see Harjot already. Hi everyone. Um, Good to see everyone coming online. Here you go. Hi.
How are you, Olga?
Good. How are you? Can you see me well?
Yes, and you?
Yes, very well. So good to see you again face to face. And I haven't been on my conversation with Olga for a number of weeks due to the different New Year's and
Yeah,
everything else. So it's nice to be back and nice to have you with me for the session after the break. So great, really.
a happy New Year. I know we have so
Happy New
many.
Year.
Yes,
Yes,
it's
and
been.
happy belated birthday.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, thank you. Well, it's interesting, a special year because I'm also by Chinese zodiac tiger, so it is
Oh,
the year of tiger. So it's the
I'm a
first.
tiger as well.
There we go. Oh my God,
There
yes.
it goes. It's our year.
It is our year, and this is just gonna get
Yes.
on.
Absolutely. So I think I can see quite a lot of people are already joining in. What is going to happen? I will say a few words about the conversations with Olga. Some people already been on most of my episodes. Some of them are joining us first time, and after that, I will tell a few words about you, and I will basically read the notes that I put together, and then we'll just take off.
Okay.
Sounds good?
Yeah, sounds great.
Great, wonderful. So, welcome everyone to Conversations with Olga. It's so nice to be back. I haven't been, as I mentioned right now, for a few more than usual. I guess my last episode was about maybe 4 weeks ago. So I'm very happy to be back and to have my session episode number 32 today with my friend Harjot Singh, and I will tell you all about him, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the session. I started Conversations with Olga. It's IGTV and YouTube series during the circuit breaker. I should call it as my COVID project, one of my COVID projects. Another COVID project is my little black book that I've just published. But IGTV series is basically it has a goal that. Just give me 1 second. I have a little bit of a sorry, rewind. I've started it during the circuit breaker with the goal to introduce my dear friends and personalities whom I met through all my career or through so many years to the multicultural Singapore society community through a platform that is very accessible and platform that I was personally able to capture myself because I'm not very much of a technical person. These conversations run the gamut of cultural, intellectual exchanges to more of a personal conversations about how people fulfill their dreams. My main mission, of course, is and hope for this series is to inspire and cultivate a more diverse and inclusive communities. It is an honor for me today to have my guest for episode number 32, Harjot Singh. I will be very brief in introducing you, Harjot, and then we'll just move into some of the very interesting topics, at least interesting topics for me and I'm sure for everyone else. Harjot, an award-winning global strategist, leader, and artist and activist, Harjot is most drawn to people shaped by their interest in constant discovery, learning, and open-mindedness. In the past 20 years, he has traveled to over 70 countries, lived and worked in 6 countries, learned to make himself understood and give taxi drivers instructions, which is very important, in 6 languages, hosted a radio show in Shanghai, read the late night news in All India Radio, completed the first draft of a manuscript of his first novel, created a body of work for 2 art shows, failed and succeeded at several diets. I'm very curious about that. And worked with some of the most well-known agencies in the world on nearly every category, from packaged goods to banking, cars, retail, paints, telecom, tourism, cosmetics, credit cards, and governments. An ad industry veteran with over 25 years global experience, he believes that the power of creativity in helping companies move forward and move the world forward cannot be underestimated. Cannot agree more with that. Harjot has judged, chaired, advised, spoken at, and won awards at the most notable industry award shows, including Cannes Lions, Eurobest, FES, WARC, IPA, and so many others. Harjot joined McCann New York in 2011 prior to being named Global CSO of McCann in January 2021. He served as CSO McCann World Group how do you pronounce it? EMEA, leading it to the most creatively effective agency network for 5 years. Harjot lives in London with his partner Remo and their pug Margot. And I want to ask you about Margot as well. So, I would like to start with a question about your story. I want to hear how did it all happen? How did you get into the advertising?
You know, every time I think about this question, I try and ask myself, where do I even start? And what's the most interesting way to tell the story? And I'm lost for words each time because it's just been a series of so many coincidences, but at the same time, you know, many deliberate choices. Because now that everyone, you know, as you said, I just had a birthday, I'm a year older, a year wiser, and we're both tigers, so you know, we're like on a level of wisdom that is different. I think I've realized there are no more coincidences in life, so everything's sort of just lining up for you, and you make the choices that get you there. So it wasn't any different for me, because for me, what happened with advertising was very natural, because growing up in India, which is where I did grow up for a big chunk of my life, especially my formative years, and father had a job where he was traveling all the time, and we were leaving places every 2 or 3 years, and there was just this sense of transience. And you know, those days, growing up, we did not have satellite television, and we didn't, you know, cable like the way we do now. There was no internet, so the only escape were movies and magazines. And movies were expensive, and there were special treats. So magazines were the only things that we had in free supply at home. They were in every library. And, you know, my mother just had tons of them at home, because I think she liked reading them as well. And every year, my grandfather gave us it was a tradition, a Reader's Digest subscription.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, I had those too. Yeah, that was a very, very common gift, actually. Very sought after gift, yes. Birthdays and yeah.
And that was like one magazine. My mother didn't mind the fact that, okay, I had time with it, but I think she wasn't, the other ones were, anyway. So there was lots of magazines at home, is one way of saying. And I don't know how it was now I know in other countries it's different, but in India, you know, you flip through the magazines and there were lots of ads. And at every corner of the ad was a key number, which now I know is a key number. And it said, say, something like JWT 202035, blah, blah, blah. And there was a number at the end of every print ad, almost as if it was signed by the artist. Because, you know, growing up, I was like, that was the other thing. The museums were a bit free, so we could go and see. And I saw how artists would sign their name at the corner of the painting.
Yes.
And so in all of these, I was traditionally, you know, programmed to look for, where's the credit for this visual or this thing? And it was always this thing over there in the corner, this key number which said something like, Olga, blah, 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 XYZ.
Yeah.
And I was like, who this is and what is this? But what I did know is that there were these photos and there were these words and sentences so cleverly strung together about products that some I recognized and some I didn't. And the ones I didn't recognize, I wanted. The ones I had, I was so glad I had them. So without realizing, I think I was just drawn to that world. As I got older, I understood that those are actually the key numbers of the agencies that make the world. And then started to get very interested in that world. And, you know, I was always drawn to the arts. And then I was just so intrigued by the fact that a set of words and a visual and the arrangement of the two can just completely change your mind about something and can make you feel things that otherwise you wouldn't. And didn't have the luxury of writing a novel or a story because that was the other escape I had growing up, books. But
Yeah.
this was one visual, and I was like, art how clever and creative is it to be able to have just one shot and to be able to make people feel so. And so I was so drawn to it, and I started getting more and more. And then I think life just took me closer and closer. I ended up through an internship at Y&R and then to Ogilvy, and then I just never looked
Yes.
back. That's how I fell into it.
Wonderful. You're a strategist. What does strategy in advertising world means? I remember, and I believe I'm right, it used to be called a
Yes,
planner. So can
yes.
you please share with us what special powers should these people have who do the strategy?
So I think you can call it planners, you can call it strategists. I think the reason why in some markets, in some parts of the world, we call it strategy because we feel a broader discipline, because planning feels quite operational and
Yeah.
strategy feels a lot more vision based, because I think it's very creative. So the ability to reinterpret what is possible, the ability to imagine there are the most interesting way to accomplish a goal, and the ability to determine in the first place what is it that we should be solving. Those are
Yeah.
all muscles you apply when you're a strategist. They're very creative. So I think
Yes.
right strategist is the right word. So what all strategists do is just two or three things. Number one, you are problem solvers, and we are here to question the objectives. Then when someone says this is the problem we want to solve, there are two ways of doing that. A good strategist questions, is this the right problem? And secondly, is this the most ambitious thing you can do? And so that's the first thing. The second strategists do is determine what is the bravest, boldest, most interesting, most memorable, most enduring way of solving this problem. Because ultimately, we are in the business of engaging people and moving them with a commercial interest in mind. But still, people
Yes. Of course. Of course.
and and then the third thing that good strategists have to do is be able to determine whether the solution has been successful or not, and help all the stakeholders buy into what will define success and be able to then scale that success. So that's what good strategists do. And it sounds like they need to have some crazy theoretical skills. They're helpful to know how this business works, but I think they can be learned. But the real skills are just curiosity
Yes.
and uh,
I
an
I
open.
I totally agree with you. When you mentioned first that how you were going through the magazines and looking at the ads, I remember just, even a few years ago, somebody told me, you want to project something, you need to envision. You have to go through the magazines, cut the most amazing ads that talk to you, that let you dream and collect and put them together. And to be honest with you, I've done that. And I've created like the huge sort of sheet of paper, almost put it on my wall with all these different ads that talked to me, that gravitated to me, that made me dream. And I manifested those. So that's how these ads sometimes talk to me. And what are your actually favorite ad campaigns that you can share with us
Oh, Olga, I wish I had
that
one.
give a positive power to people?
No, I don't know if I have one, because it's so hard. Again, I thought about this. Oh, what if Olga asks me, what's your favorite commercial of all times? I don't know if I have one. I just think that at different parts of my life and my career, different life stages, I've been drawn to different kinds of ads
Yes,
because they spoke to me. Like you, I too, would take old big newspapers and then put them on the wall and then cut out all the ads and visuals and
yes,
work with them and then kind of create my own collage. And that was the way
yeah,
to decorate walls. And, so that's how I lived as well. And so anything that spoke to me. But when I really think about it, I think it's about who has used advertising to completely, you know, have the cult-like impact in culture. So I love something as simple and playful as what M&Ms have done with 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 what they make, to something as provocative and moving as what Nike have done. Something that is as everyone loves it, and there's a reason why everyone loves it. On how Apple may have redefined a, and more recently in my own career, just seeing brands that have been around for so long, how they've been able to reinvent
Yes.
the power of advertising, whether that's L'Oreal or that's MasterCard. So, I don't know if I have one favorite uh, ad, but I like many for different reasons. But
Yes.
that my most
I
film ever I've seen is, I think it was from Mercedes Benz. And I don't know if you ever saw that. It was just the chicken. And you never saw the car, you never saw anything. And it was the idea about really good suspension. And it was like a chicken that was dancing very groovy.
Oh yes, yes, I remember that.
It blew.
Yeah, that was very funny.
I was so young. I was like, this
Yes.
is great advertising, because you don't even see the car and you want it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, so they're.
Totally. Yes. But Harjot, I actually also can relate when people ask me, what is your favorite event you staged? What is your favorite project? I also cannot really answer that, because all these projects that I've been creating and giving birth to, they're like my children. So it's very difficult to pick one over the other, because I guess perhaps similar to you, I put all my heart and all my passion in anything that I do. So they all become very dear. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
believe you have the same. You've traveled all around the world. You worked in the US and you started with Asia, and now you live in London. What are the some insights that you've gained working from country to country, from culture to culture, from people to people, and with your colleagues and with your clients as well? Uh, how how does one need to adapt in different cultures?
I think one thing I learned is that you have to get comfortable with not knowing what's going on all the time. So to be comfortable with not conflict, but your internal conflict. I think we as human beings just want to figure everything out. We want to solve it. We want to put it in a box. We want to label it, and we want to say, let's move on. And
Yeah.
we've sorted this out, whether that's in society, whether that's with the way we react to people, whether that's how we even judge ourselves, really. And I think
Yes. Yes.
that's learned from travel, from just, living all over the world. And I think my childhood prepared me for that as well, because we never lived anywhere more than 2.5, 3 years till I, went into a slightly longer education setup where you were in one school for a long time. Um, it was exactly that A, no one's got it figured out. Be comfortable with not knowing. And, just, it's okay to feel like an idiot, because I remember, never forget, like the first time I went to countries where I didn't even understand what the road signs meant. I didn't even, it was a strange time. Nobody spoke your language. You didn't understand anything, but you were absolutely okay with being there and figuring it out. And I think you receive so much more insight when
Yes.
you're in a state where you're not obsessed with solving the problem and
Yes.
figuring and saying, well, I got this. Like, I don't think everything in life has to be figured out. That's the first.
Absolutely.
So the comfort with ambiguity is something that I think I learned instinctively. And I think it's so valuable in leadership and in life and in work, is to just be comfortable with the idea that there are many possibilities and they're all emerging in real time.
Yes.
And
I love it.
yeah, and you can ask people for help
Yes.
and you
I
learn from.
love it. But that's why the body, I guess it all goes into a bit of a body language, your facial expression, your smile, your comfort, you're making people around you feeling comfortable. And I think this is all how we gravitate to one another eventually. So, as you know, there are so many people speak the same language, but they totally don't understand one another, and
Yeah.
there's no communication. But yet you go into certain situations when nobody speaks the same language, and yet you're in comfort zone. So.
Yes, I think I've had some of my most beautiful, human, and memorable interactions, the beginnings of friendships in places
Yes.
they are completely different
Yes.
from you might have been used to, because you just suspend judgment because
Yes.
it's survival, and then you realize, oh, actually, this is really fun.
Yes, I agree.
Live. And it makes you an interesting person. And
Yeah, absolutely. That brings me to the question, throughout your life, which country and time of your life, of course, I'm not talking about present, you're in London and very happy, and but in general, throughout your life journey, what gave you the most memorable, I should say, or very strong experience? Which country, which culture, which time?
I think about it again, like I think at different parts of my life, there were many different influences. But when I really reflect on so I'm 48, and my, in this much time, I think about what are the most different relationships and lessons I've learned that have guided my journey. I would bring it all down to Shanghai. And, I moved there late 2002, early 2003. And it was just like this. It was SARS. SARS was
Yes.
happening at that time. And, and I had, prior to that, I'd just been in Singapore. And so it was very like, it's like, oh my God, you're going to like, the difference what Singapore feels like and what Shanghai felt like in 2002, 2003 was very different. Prior to that, I'm in India. And that move really taught me so much because it was like it opened my mind. And I have friends that I met in China that have remained my friends. They are like family. I've had friends. One of my Some of my closest friends are people I met in my building, and they have been they are my family. I've shared more with them and spent more defining moments with them than I may have with my own
Yes.
biological. I met my partner Remo there as well, 18 years. So, it's just, it's been, and then from a career point of view, it just a level and a trajectory that I would never have been able to, be on had I not
Yeah.
had that.
Yes.
And at the same time, Olga, it gives you this sense of learning to have belief in your experience. Because I remember moving out of China and going to, let's say, Canada first before I moved to New York, and there were people who would be like, "Well, how relevant is that?" And I was
Yeah.
just like, "You have no idea how relevant that is, because
Yeah.
what you learn there is indeed transferable from a
Yes.
skill
Yes. Yes.
follower." So
And
yeah,
thank you for that. You moved obviously very fast in your career. How has your role changed as a strategist? Because you moved to the very high management position. What is new for you, and what do you enjoy now in being strategist, but yet being in a very high position in your company, in your field?
yeah, that's such a great question. Some things are still the same, but I think what I enjoy is still the same, Olga. But the way you receive that gratification has changed. So I
Okay.
still enjoy the thrill of solving something. I still enjoy.
Do you still write briefs?
Yes, I mean, I was just coming
Good.
to what. So what's changed is the following things have changed for me. So the way I think about it is now my biggest client is McCann. It used to be, there was a time it was Nestle or Bank of Montreal or
Yes.
Unilever. Now my biggest client is McCann. So I get to build that brand.
Yes.
And everyone who works there and all the leaders in all the markets become my stakeholders and brand managers. So applying that whole playbook internally is very gratifying. The second thing that I enjoy really, really is to be able to create an environment where others can come up with really interesting solutions and bright solutions, and to witness, to be sitting there when people are like, oh my God, I just did that. I just accomplished that. And to be in that moment, it's a very special moment to be.
Oh, yes.
People are achieving things and
Yes.
you were just there in some capacity, whether to create the condition or to say something or to even silence courage. So there's just so much opportunity to receive gratification.
Oh my God, it's incredible that you're mentioning that. You're my twin. That's why we're both tigers. I feel exactly the same when I stage my events. I feel tremendous gratification when I see people enjoying and immersing themselves in something that I created, I was part of. So I very much understand and feel for you. That's an incredible feeling.
Yeah, it is. In fact, yeah, I agree with you. It's the best feeling because you feel that you are able to impact so many more people and be part of so much more,
Yes,
many other success stories in so many capacities. So
yes,
if you are someone who's an accomplishment oriented person, and I am an accomplishment oriented person, this has been very gratifying because the opportunities to accomplish through people, with people, around people have increased exponentially in this role. So, it is an
yes,
accomplishment to see
yes.
people being
And
successful.
that's an excellent answer, and it's really it's beautiful to hear these words. I absolutely can relate to that. And with regards to the change, what has changed since since you've started in the business? And, of course, there's issues about the diversity and inclusion. How did it affect the business overall in advertising world?
I think we're making progress is the right answer and is the correct answer actually, and it is accurate answer. But I think um, the thing with this industry is that it it's happening. An awakening is happening as we speak because this is not a difficult rationale. I always say, as an industry, we invented the concept of point of difference. Remember,
Yeah.
we said this is the
Yes, we spoke about it. Yes, I would like you to tell
yeah
all of us your thoughts on it. I
yeah. So
agree.
we invented that concept as an. We told clients that we will be able to do things with you and for your brands in a way that no one else can. And so getting people to pay more for what is different is something that we've invented. And so I think as an industry, we are very predisposed and ready to embrace that difference because our future depends on it. Like you cannot create work that's different. You cannot espouse an ideology around a point of difference if everyone's the same. You
Yeah.
know, you can't if you can't make things that are different, interesting, and engaging if everyone who makes them or is engaged in the making of that work is the same or thinks the same way. So I
Yeah.
think the industry is waking up to that. It's definitely the volume on that song is louder. It was less diverse when I started. It is becoming steadily, progressively more. There's a lot more work to be done, but I think as an industry, there's a lot more awareness and a lot greater urgency, and that makes me happy. A good change. And the other thing is, I think as a creative industry, the opportunities and avenues for us to actually be creative have increased because people have now got more ways to engage with brands. People have got more ways to socialize their opinions and their views to, be part of a narrative or, or,
Yeah.
or, or create one. And for us to be able to be in that space and have all those means at our disposal,
Yes.
those so it has become more exciting. And in that regard,
That brings me actually to to sort of continuation of this question that I just posted for you. Where do you think the business is going in terms of that we live now in a world of social media, digital, crypto, and metaverse? How does this all relate to the brick and mortar of advertising?
So, Olga, I think we have to just peel this back and say, what is advertising really in the business of doing? Because there have been developments like this from the very beginning of this industry. At one
Mm,
point, you could only kind of talk to people, then the radio came, then print came, then TV came, then digital came. There's always going to be more developments out there. But ultimately, I think it's important for us to just go back to what is it we're in the business of doing. So if we are in the business of engaging people's attention If we changing behavior, if we're in the business of being able to draw from culture to land in culture so that you can actually engage people in a full way and towards the that we have in mind, or that is beneficial to them and to the brand and to society now,
Yeah.
then all of this is just a means to that end. So I think first thing on that is, in all of this increasing amount of choice and confusion, it's a time for us to actually go back to what is it that we're in the business of doing. If this is about attention, behavior, and creativity, then that will always be the center of what we do. Everything is just a channel. So that's one. The second thing is, this is not a science. This is always going to be about creative people imagining things, presenting them in ways that are really persuasive, and doing things that are really engaging and interesting. So let's just stop trying to say that we need precise answers, because there are no precise answers.
Yes.
Human beings are complex. Human beings are, and then the third thing is, with all of this kind of opportunity, there's great reward. People want to make choice investments at a point after doing a lot more diligence and saying, are you sure it'll work out? I think we have to be more and more comfortable with the fact that you can search everything. And sometimes also the need to not outsource your common sense. So it's also really important for us now to kind of be in touch with what it is that this industry is, what it is that we're all doing. We're human beings, moving humans.
Most important.
No, so I don't know if that answers the question, but I think this
Yes, it answered, because but I also, do you feel or do you think that people's thought processes are different, and also appreciation is different when they see something physical on a billboard versus they see this fleeting TikTok commercial or TikTok advertisement? What is your sense of engagement or feeling?
I think, Olga, it's like we have to just place ourselves in that position. We're all human beings at the end. And there's a time and a place. There are times when the way you feel when you see something on an outdoor billboard feels just right. And there are times when you're sitting at home and scrolling on your phone and you see something on TikTok, and that's really interesting. I think the point is to not try and say that it's either this or that. Now, creativity is an expansive conversation versus a reductive conversation. I'm really another worry. We tend to be having conversations that are more reductive, or we run the danger of saying it's either this or that. No, it can be all. It can be this and that. Because, like I said, people are layered, complex humans. We can consume media, content, data on different devices at different moments, in different formats, all the time. So it really depends on that, really. So if I were to advise someone,
probably a bit of an intuition as well. I mean, you just have to feel it.
You have to.
Yes, you have to, absolutely.
And to be, like, I think we can't just say, you have to be interesting. So you can't be, please, product on TikTok. On TikTok, you have to be interesting in a way that's not the same interesting on a billboard. On a billboard, you have to be interesting not in the same way you have to be interesting on Instagram. So
of course,
the main thing is you have to be interesting.
Yes. So, interesting and probably authentic, in a sense, at least to your own self. Exactly. At least I believe in it. I'm sure you focus a lot on Gen Z and younger generations. What are some big insights about them that we should know, that you focus on, and anticipate some different changes that make you strategize?
Firstly, I just think we're so lucky to be the age we are, and to live in a world. I think we're incredibly fortunate to be in a moment when society is having the renaissance it is, with a cohort like Gen Z. I think they are changing the world in ways that great to witness it. It's great to enable it. It's great to be around. And so I think firstly, I just want to say that it's just a very interesting time to be alive. And Gen Z, for me, I think there are two, three things about them that I find incredibly impressive. One thing, I think they're very, very more altruistic and express the way they are altruistic than we've maybe witnessed before. So they're questioning everything, and they,
Yes,
so people call them, oh, they're troublemakers. I said, I don't think they're troublemakers. They're questioning things in ways that we were not instantly doing before. So I think it's great that they're questioning things and they're going to actually expand the conversation. So that's really good to be around. So, they are, to your point about authenticity, there is no option but to kind of, meet them in that way. Otherwise, they will cancel you. So there's no time for bullshit with them. Um,
yes,
they're also extremely, I think very politically progressive. Because what I love about the Gen Z narrative is they talk about diversity in a way that I think is so progressive. What they're saying, and I'm just paraphrasing, is that the difference in society has always existed. There is nothing political about being trans or being black or not
yes,
a certain way or being whatever signifiers or identifiers it is that society has created for us. What is political is trying to fit that into constructs that we have had no agency in developing. So I love their thinking gender, because they're like, you know what, this has always existed. The spectrum has
yes,
always existed, but to kind of fit people in certain molds, that is political. The existence.
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
I think it's massively interesting that Gen Z are having such elevated conversations, and and see them, and they're young and switched on, and then you can actually focus on all the things that people like talking about, which are perhaps not as complimentary, because people say, oh, they're distracted, too many things, they're very
Yes,
easily swayed by things, they can't focus. But I just think that it's time that we looked at what is it that they're bringing to society, how they're going to move
yes,
the forward. And I think they're going to move us forward in
yes.
ways massively, and I'm so glad that they're around. um, I
Yes.
surround myself by them. I'm like, please teach me. Tell.
Yeah, I feel the same, absolutely. And you are, in the strategy world and strategy function, people and companies look to you for cultural insights and future trends in general. And I know this for a fact that you're a guru to so many people and so many companies. What do you see as the big themes emerging in 2020 onwards in culture, travel, business, and play as well?
um, some of the
What do
things.
you predict?
Oh well, I don't. It's like, it's not a prediction as much, but it's
Or
um,
what do you feel?
just common sense to me, because we just see it happening in front of our eyes. And in my role, firstly, I'm very fortunate that we have to work with smart people. I'm surrounded by so many smart, progressive, creative people all the time. Like, they're always questioning things and imagining things and researching things, and you know, um, uh, trying to build a point of view on the zeitgeist in ways that we haven't heard before. So I'm surrounded by curious minds. So that's great. So you just learning, and you're always moving in that. So it's not me, firstly. It's just the idea that you brilliance and wisdom and creativity at all times in your role. So what I'm seeing moving forward, is that this whole concept of what brands and people and advertising will do, have to do. They're no longer these swim lanes that are going to be like, okay, it's either this is one swim lane, this is one swim lane, this is one swim lane. So, for example, you cannot be about maximizing profit without being questioned on what is that impact on people and on the planet, and what are you doing in terms of what's your impact outside of just the product you sell. So that's going to continue. And in the past, we've always seen the things like purpose and CSR and sustainability, and almost add-ons. And this is now all part of the bigger narrative, and I'm really happy to see that. So I think that's
Yeah.
really something we're going to see. The second thing I think we're going to see is this need to, either you're going to remain interesting, and have a real utility and have a real point of view, or you're going to get canceled. So, it's enough in that sense. So I think there's going to be a greater responsibility to be meaningful and interesting to people
Yes,
in their
I
lives
totally
beyond
agree.
just what you make, So those are going to be, I think, some bigger changes. And then creatively, we're going to see ideas from places and spaces we haven't seen before. And we have to get comfortable with that. So
Yeah.
rather than be afraid of it, So I think that's something that I'm personally very excited about, because I think we're going to be surprised in ways that we haven't been before. And it's going to either open us up, or it's going to actually make some people be like, oh, no,
Yeah,
that's
of
threatening.
course.
And I think that's sad. But then,
That's a progression, I guess. That's a
yeah,
progress of life. And talking about this, me personally, I have been trying to comprehend or try to read and to at least to learn some basics of the metaverse and NFTs and crypto and etc. What is your take on this universe, professionally and personally?
it's all new, and we're all learning as we speak about what the opportunities are going to be. But like I said, it's just a new set of for us to be more engaging, more interesting, and more creative. I think this is how I'm choosing to look at it with that right now, because there's also that other way of saying, okay, well, this is just going to create more room for ambiguity and distrust, and question what's true and what's versus what's being presented as truth. I think there are those arguments out there as well, but I'm choosing very deliberately to view all of this development as how does it expand the set of opportunities for us to be more creative, more interesting, and more compelling, creative, commercially, socially. So that's how I'm looking at it. And I'm still learning. So I think it's interesting, very interesting, Olga. You and I were talking about this, the metaverse. Think about it. Who's actually done something really interesting with the metaverse? If the metaverse is about massively democratizing access, the the best work in that space has been done by the luxury brands right now. What
Absolutely.
Balenciaga,
Yes.
I think, isn't it interesting that that's
Absolutely. Yes.
where we're seeing
Yes.
success stories in the metaverse. So I think
Yeah.
it's a really exciting time, and I don't have one view just now. So I'm still every day I have a
But
different.
you're plugged in. You're technically plugged in into this.
I'm just
I assume. I feel.
yes, because there's otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah. Because for your creative person, how much for your creative process, how much actually do you follow the data? How much do you follow all these technological developments for you to be able even to converse on the matter? Because I find it difficult sometimes, well, most of the time, as a matter of fact.
I think everyone's learning, and we're in a moment where everyone's learning. Some people have learned more words than, but no one's perfect. So we're all getting in our own time.
Really, even us. Yes. Um, Also, what is the focus today on mitigating the risks in business and in your profession? Where do you find bold and breakthrough ideas in advertising happening most of the day? And how do you personally encourage these ideas to move forward? What is your thoughts on it, and what is your strategy and learning at the
Uh,
same time?
yeah, a very very good question again. I think there are one. Um, it's becoming clear that what you uh, should you be able to prove the impact of what. So I
Harjot, you're breaking off a little bit. I'm not sure whether you're, yeah,
can you hear me now?
yes.
Yeah, I think so. There is a clear and present imperative on being able to prove that the work you make works. It's about proving the impact of your work. So that is become more and more important. It has always been important, but I think now we have more means to prove it, and there's a greater urgency with which we have to actually prove the impact of work. So that's, and you know what, and it should be like that. So there's a greater conversation on effectiveness, like is your, are your ideas effective? So that's one thing. And so that becomes something that you actually even apply when you're evaluating the work, or when you're proposing a solution.
Yeah.
It's an effective lens versus an efficiency-based lens. It's not just about saving the client money. It's not just about making sure that the money that you spend less to maximize profits. It has to increase, have an incremental impact. So I think that is one. The second thing is also being able to understand just how does it deliver on a broader set of objectives. So like I said, work that just says, a client can come to you with an idea that, I would like to sell more of this at this cost, or I would like to gain market share in this capacity. But being able to actually do something that actually has impact, not just commercially, but also creatively interesting, also socially responsible, also, have
Absolutely.
the ability to create a narrative and build and expand a narrative, how these brands fit into people's lives beyond just the product. So ideas have to be much more ambidextrous in that way, much versatile, able to create enough room and enough of a foundation to grow the business in more ways. So it's platform thinking, it's not just about brand idea thinking. It's really coming back to like, what is the biggest platform you can actually come up with that can set the foundation for growth in a way that allows you to make work, create ideas that continue to move the brand forward in ways that are culturally interesting, commercially lucrative, and socially
responsible. I absolutely agree. And do you think, or what do you think about the COVID effect on creativity? Has it in any way affected the insight of the core of creativity itself?
It's a great question, and I would love to talk about creativity as a discipline versus as a um, job. So what COVID has done has moved the conversation on creativity from being about just outputs to outcomes. Versus so creativity prior to this is like, this is your output. You make this work. You make this work. Here's the brief. Here's the output. So I think it's a more outcome-based conversation now, where we're looking at what is the broadest impact creative thinking can have. So many other, and we've all been introduced to our own creative muscle during this moment of this pandemic, because you know what? This was an experience that we shared as a world. We were all in it at the same. We were all in this. And we were like, I know people that say things like, we were all in a case study because nobody had this figured out. In that moment, it has been massively, useful for us to kind of discover how can we all be more creative. We've all been more creative than we actually give ourselves credit for, whether in the way we were connecting and doing like this, whether we've connected with people, whether we've kept the business moving, whether we've kept families together, whether we kept our own sanity together. So creativity is alive and well. I'm worried about that. But the idea is over here is that to kind of like keep that breath moving forward and not go back to that space where, creativity is the prerogative of those who have creative in their title. That will go away. And that needs to be.
I agree.
And so I think everyone has to be.
And that's why you are known as a world's renowned leader. So I would like to ask you about your leadership style. That's true, Harjot. What is your secret and the source of your empowerment about your superpower in being a leader?
It's firstly, thank you.
You don't have to be humble, be honest.
No. Firstly, I don't believe in this arrogant business. I don't believe that there's any such thing called being arrogant. So
I know, yes.
I believe in it because that is, speaking of leadership style, I actually tell people, like, do not feel that you're being arrogant when you speak about yourself and your own brilliance, because there's no such thing. Like, this is a construct. somebody made a thing, decided that people who are like you or look like you or appear like you shouldn't speak the way you do or shouldn't be so loud. And if you are, if you're not, if you don't fit in that construct, you're being arrogant. So I don't believe in that. And I tell
Yeah.
people, your leadership style, I tell everyone, shine your light, live your best, just be loud and be yourself. So that's something that
Yes.
I bring unapologetically to work as myself. And I expect and hope that it galvanizes people around me to be that way, because
Yes.
we are not going to be goaded and forced into being a certain way because it's more convenient for you that we
Yes.
are a certain way. So I tell everybody, you know what, this is not a science, you're all creative, everyone's got the right, like, be their full self, bring that person, bring that
Yes.
to work. So that's the first one.
Yes.
And the second thing is, I am someone who operates from a place, because I think, what I've learned is when you start from a place of trust, um, you're already halfway there. People are already around.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, people already want.
Yes. 100%. Yes.
And then the
Trust
third,
is everything.
exactly. And then the third thing,
Yes.
what's true in life is true in business. So it's really not rocket science. People don't want to be around assholes.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to work with a competent jerk. Like, nobody
Yes.
does. So don't be an
Yes.
asshole. Don't be a jerk.
Yes.
Like, point is, just because people can't tell you to your face that you're being a jerk doesn't mean they're not thinking it. So I just think
Yes.
that's the first thing. Like, just be be someone who people say is a person who I want to be around, because
Yes.
you do your best work
Yes.
with people who allow you
Yes.
and bring that out in you. So be one of those that people want to do their best work with. So
I
that's
love
really,
it.
you know,
It's very invigorating, I feel the energy. I'm very sure this is how you invigorate. This is Harjot's style to leadership. This is how you invigorate people around you. I feel it.
yeah.
Absolutely. This is
I think
amazing. Yes.
say
And
it like,
not everybody has an ability to speak up and to be yourself in a large company, especially setting today. So I think the advice that you just given to all of us is it's exceptional, very valuable, and I thank you for that. Harjot, I would like to, on this note, continuing basically on this similar subject, I would like to chat about your podcast and
ah,
tell us a little bit more. Now, especially podcast culture has been popular more than ever, I think, perhaps due to COVID and there's so much content there, good or bad. And I've been listening actually to some of your podcast episodes, and they're absolutely excellent. It's called Spontaneously Candid for everyone to know, and I believe it's from McCann itself, isn't it? It's a part of your activation from the company. What inspired you to start this podcast?
so it wasn't entirely my idea. I was very, I got picked to be part of this project, which I think is brilliant. And the inspiration is very clear. I think there is, to your point, Olga, when you and I talked before, and what you and I have always connected on is this thing about
Yes,
through the crap, because there's just too much of rehearsed bullshit out there. So
absolutely,
this whole thing about,
absolutely, yes. It's a lot
yeah,
of fake.
yeah,
Yes,
and like people kind of like define themselves by their titles, and then people define
yes,
themselves their job, and that's
yes,
just too much of that bullshit in the world and in the corporate sector.
absolutely.
The point really is, how would we get to know the person behind the title or the job a little bit better? And we just kind of make people everyone wants to get to know better more accessible in that capacity. And so the idea was, I love that, because I thought, you know what, it's an unrehearsed conversation completely. I don't send
Yes,
questions beforehand. Nobody knows what they're going to talk about. We feel it in the moment, because the idea is, I think listeners can tell if this is totally rehearsed and boilerplate,
yes,
because
but it's genuine. Whether you feel, yeah, absolutely, yeah, I agree. I
and
agree.
the idea was, I would love for 7, 8, 900 people, how many ever are listening. So some last one, I think we had over like 1,000 people tune in. And it was so great because for me, the
Amazing.
idea was it's 1,000 people are eavesdropping on a conversation that I'm having with someone over a drink. So it's
Yes.
building that connection with people and just making them accessible and, exploring what makes people human.
Yes.
Um, yeah,
Love
and
it.
sharing, bringing it out and keeping it candid, because the other thing is
Yes.
fair game. So if you've heard some of the episodes, some conversations have gone in spaces and areas where they wouldn't have gone if it was a rehearsed
Yes.
conversation.
I agree, absolutely. And this is something, that you and me have a little bit in common. This is actually how I put together my little black book. The same thing. It's a
I
conversation
love.
start. I wanted to share and I wanted to express myself on a very candid manner about the subject that sometimes people don't even think of, but then I entice them to think of and to explore and to think within their own selves and to relate to it. So this is what I feel through your podcast as well. And it's absolutely genuine and very authentic conversations. And I'm sure that all our listeners or people who join or who will join later, when I'll post the link, will go and you'll definitely add to your pool of
Oh,
supporters so many more others. And thank you for that. And I would like to ask you just a few little personal questions. Because you're such a diverse and incredibly interesting person, what are your personal interests and how does this affect your process in terms of work? What really inspires you as a human being?
so well. Firstly, the first I would love was oxygen, the ability to travel, and in my role, I get.
Yes,
So that's really a great thing that makes work enjoyable for me. Like I said, I love being in places and spaces where, you are constantly being compelled to view the world differently and question your own beliefs and question your own understanding and question your own lens. So I think that I got through work. I
yeah.
get through work. Last 2 years have not been great because I'm so itching to get back. And I'm like craving jet lag again. It's just so
No, I
crazy.
know, I
But I
know.
would
Talking
jet lag.
talking about the jet lag and talking about travel, some people when they go to countries or to different cities, they some go to the market, some go to the churches or temples, some go shopping.
Yeah.
What basically, or some go to, of course, to eat and to different foodie places and or Michelin star restaurants. What is important for you when you travel?
I just, you know what? I think I'm a curious person. I am. I'm like I liked in a state of wonder a little bit. Like, I want to have that experience. And I look for it, I seek it out. So, things that interest me about travel is so sometimes business trips are very, as you can imagine, very functional.
Yeah, of course.
Same driver who picks you up because you go there often. They pick you, take the same hotel. From there, you go to the same office, and you jump back in the car and come back to the airport, and you're back. Sometimes that happens, but even in those moments, I'm going to look for that alchemy and that little magic moment for where you can have that moment, whether it's talking to someone in the lounge or talking to someone at the airport. But
Yes.
what I like to do, if I have time, is this little thing. I have never talked about it before, so I don't know if anyone from work is hearing, but I always take one taxi ride where I just go like, let's just drive. And we'll just talk a little bit. And I'll just say, I'm not going with a place in mind. I mean, like, you know what? It's my first time. Let's say I was in Budapest. I'm like, it's my first time here, and I've got 2 hours. I don't
I
know.
love it.
Go somewhere. Where would you? And I'll just keep the car. And, they can do that. Once in a while, what I've also done is, I have a very dear colleague who sometimes travels with me, and he's just another very curious person. He's a researcher. And so what we've done together is, he knows this little secret of mine. What we've done is we've reached out to an old history professor who might have retired, or a student anthropologist, and we're like, we'll take us to a walking tour about the city. So the first time I went to Belgrade, we had a retired professor just walk me through the city. And
Amazing.
happening when I was in Moscow. I went out with a bunch of history students. So I think
Amazing.
sometimes I've been able to do that, and
Yeah.
um, that makes me feel alive. Obviously,
Love it. I think Mark, my son, whom you obviously know very well, he does very similar things. And I believe that one of the tours that actually after we took together and he done it before years ago was inspired by you, and you suggested to him to connect to a certain person,
Yeah.
one of the historians, and gravitate to his platform and then arrange for this tour. So this is a it's completely different experience, completely different feel of the place that you visit, and you can relate to it. I love it.
You know, all
Um,
this in life, like I said, what's true in life is true in business. Learn this. You will see what you allow yourself to see.
yes,
You will
very true.
allow yourself to feel. So I always say, I am giving myself the permission to be surprised. I am giving myself permission to be like in awe of something. Tension, if you place that at the forefront and just go on with your day, live by that system of values that you have, you will find that that moment does arrive.
Yes, yes.
That's what I live for. And I find that in art, I find that in travel, I find that in reading, I find that in friends, I love find that in food, you know. So, yeah, but travel is really the thing that gives me life.
Beautiful. You know, I wanted to ask you a few words of your wisdom, but you just answered. You just said exactly, you know, Harjot's words of wisdom, and I absolutely love it. Thank you so much. It was wonderful conversation, and I think we are on a tangent, so I think we should schedule another one at some point to continue because it was absolutely inspirational and interesting and wonderful and very sincere and very humane and authentic. And I'm really thank you so much for your time. And I would like to say to everyone who been listening to us, and please join Harjot's podcast. Please join my conversations with Olga as well. This conversation will be recorded, and I will post the link on the social media. You will see it under the conversations on my events by Olga. I will also post it on YouTube. And please follow Harjot's Instagram and follow his podcast on, I believe it's on Apple. I already don't remember where I was listening to. Apple, right? So, because it's, you know, it lifts your mood and it opens so many horizons in your own soul. So thank you so much, really. I appreciate it. It's great to see you, and I hope we will have a date, physical date soon. It's one of these days in the summer, maybe in Europe, or perhaps you'll come and visit us soon as you were planning to do so. So I'm
Yes.
looking forward to that.
Look forward to seeing you in Singapore. I'll be soon.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you. And have a great day.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.